Welcome back to another episode of Dead South Paranormal. Again, I'm Joey, and this is Jeremy. And Jeremy, we got some news to tell everybody.
That is correct, Joey. So all the episodes you've heard up until now are consider them season one.
Correct.
With that being said, we don't want things to get too monotonous with our podcast because this is something that me and Joey absolutely love doing, and we love bringing it to you guys. So with that being said, we're going to start dividing everything up in seasons, and this kind of helps our workflow between our, because me and Joey have different daily lives. So together we decided that this was the best option for us. And so going forward, this will be the end of season one, and we will start back. We'll take the summer off, and we'll start back sometime on the opposite side of summer. What'd you say? End of August, 1st of September, some time frame around there. And bit of sad news.
Yes.
Out of South Carolina, Bowman, South Carolina, this week.
The booming metropolis of Bowman, it did have a tragedy this week, to be honest with you.
So, Mr. Jody Pendarvis
is
the gentleman's name. He ran what became well known as the UFO Welcome Center. Now, to hear Mr. Pendarvis' story, it was his father's house that burned down, actually. And from the scrap from his father's house, he actually used that along with other scrap material, metal and wood and plastic and so on and so forth. He constructed what appeared to be a UFO while sitting on top of like a some sort of structure.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was not just a local attraction. People from everywhere came to see it, and seems like there was a show somewhere. One of those Discovery shows kind of featured it.
Could have been.
I'm positive that one of those shows on like the Discovery Channel or one of those or on that app or whatever had featured it there and had interviewed Mr. Jody there about that. And, Mr. Jody was an eclectic individual.
Oh, definitely.
But he's got a big heart.
He does.
But Mr. Jody lost the UFO Welcome Center as well as
his house.
As well as his house involved in this.
He said there's a video up. It's on our Facebook page, and they did a little bit of an interview with Jody, and he, in his own words, he said it might have been what started the fire. Could have been one of them UFOs passing by last night.
There you go.
Is what he said. There
you go.
Our hearts and prayers go out to him, and hopefully he'll be able to recover from this. And I'd like to see him maybe bring it back one day.
One day,
we'll see.
Mr. Jody's getting a little long in the tooth, so
a little bit.
But no, definitely it is interesting. Also, I wanted to mention something else. I don't hardly ever, and Jeremy and I were talking before we started recording, and I hardly ever go back and look at the numbers of anything, like especially with Dead South. I don't go plugging into the numbers and stuff like that. But I went in there. I was in there for something, I guess, morbid curiosity sometimes. And, one of the episodes that really a lot of people resonated with was the South Carolina Bigfoot episode.
Yeah, I seen that. We actually got
a lot of comments on that too.
Did we?
Yeah,
I know I seen one comment, but it shows you how often I check the comments.
There was several comments on that that I think was like glad somebody finally brought it up type comments and stuff like that. I'd have to go back and read them again.
Yeah, now I'm curious.
Yeah, but it was I don't know. It might have been potty reading. I don't know what I was doing, But no, I thought that was really interesting that more people were interested in the cryptid side of what we do as well. And I think as we're going to talk about today, I think more people have the capability of believing in cryptids more so than they have the capability of believing in ghosts. And when, I don't want to say supernatural because supernatural is a big word. It encompasses a lot of things. But
Correct.
I think a lot of people would rather believe there's a 9-foot tall primordial ape roaming the woods than a ghost that is haunting your house.
Well, I think from a biological standpoint, I think that a lot of people, because you got to think about it, what percentage of the earth, the sea floor has actually been looked at and observed.
Yeah.
And, when you look at it from that perspective, it kind of begs the question, what haven't we found yet? But I know a lot of people, especially in the Bigfoot community, they kind of look at it as, so many people who have claimed to have seen this creature, so many people cannot be wrong. And with that being said, it's almost like they're looking for that missing link between man and ape almost.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not too far-fetched that people can believe in it. Matter of fact, they just had a big old Bigfoot festival up in North Carolina. A couple of weekends ago.
I saw that. But I just thought that was interesting that actually, maybe it's because, well, I think of it two ways. Trying to look at it from 10,000 foot sometimes is one of my toxic traits. And I think a lot of people talk about ghosts, and a lot of people, maybe that is the more mundane of the two topics, that somebody knows they've got a spooky in their house and they're just okay with it and whatever. But maybe they're more interested in what's stomping through the woods because maybe they haven't experienced that. And, I've never, I can say that, I've seen a Black Panther. I don't really think it was a Black Panther. I saw something. I just don't know what the world it was.
Right.
But I know what my grandparents told me they saw and all of that. So, I have to be conscientious of those things. But I think it's more, I don't know, mysterious than haunting sometimes to people that may be experiencing hauntings.
Yeah.
Because I think that is the more common, and we may be even more accustomed to that too.
Well, I mean, when you stop and look at something like Bigfoot.
His name is Richard.
He's a dick, all right.
Yeah.
He won't come out for shit.
No. Always running around.
Always hiding.
Throwing poop at you when you don't see it.
But I think that when it comes to the paranormal, and when I say paranormal, I mean the spirits, I mean the ghosts, and that's part of our topic for today, is that not everything is demonic.
Correct.
But I will say that even when you speak of ghosts, people, sometimes that's a conversation that people are not ready to have. With that being said, me and you come from a pretty lively hunting community.
Yes.
And I would put it, as far as when we're speaking about Bigfoot, we have creatures, animals that we know of, that we have seen with our own two eyes. People have killed on a daily basis around here, and we have camouflage gear that is modeled after that, or after some of those creatures, after some of their habitats that they live in. And then you turn around, and so why can't I believe that there's something around there stomping around that we can't see? Because it's using its natural ability to camouflage itself as a means of protection. And then sometimes, based on some of these happenings, events, and firsthand accounts, that these things can get aggressive, just like with any other creature.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because when I was a kid, I remember my grandfather, my mom's dad, telling stories about when somebody would see a deer track on it was all dirt roads back when he was younger. When somebody would see a deer track, the whole town, the whole community would go out and look at that deer track.
Really?
They didn't.
Because it wasn't as prevalent.
No.
Interesting.
And then my other grandfather, who was my step-grandfather, he was the only grandfather I knew, Remember when there was no wild turkeys in the low country south? None. Zero. Zilch.
That's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah, they were all what we have at the Easterns here are introduced,
Yeah.
technically, and some migrated. But even you and I can remember when there wasn't a such thing as a armadillo in this area.
That's true. That is true.
And now I can nightly have armadillo artillery fire going on in the backyard.
Possum on a half shell.
Correct. So, when I look at those things, I almost want to believe there's a matter of time.
Yeah.
That time is our opponent or either our partner in that, however you want to look at it. Now, as we're talking in this episode, we have had members or people, and I'm just going to be blunt as I can be here.
He said blunt.
Blunt. That have come out and said that they don't believe in it's like they believe in what we're doing, but they are adamantly against it because everything that is considered a spirit is demonic.
Correct. All spiritual activity, let's put it that way.
Yeah, all spiritual activity is demonic. And, I will say it this way. I respect that point of view.
I do. I don't agree with it, but I can respect it.
I can respect that point of view in that person that wants to place that in that realm. I'm okay with them believing that. That's just like that's the problem with the world today, Jeremy, is that we can't, when we disagree with somebody, we want to fight and scream at each other instead of going, I respect it. It's not my opinion. That's not my point of view, but I can respect yours. You can respect mine.
100%.
As long as you respect mine.
Absolutely.
But in that being said, there is, I would say, significant enough evidence through either, I know through our investigations, as well as some of the stuff that's just out there, the public, the reputable people that are doing it, people that are doing it the right way, like us. There's a lot of them doing it just in South Carolina, and gypsies showing out there again. But even when you look on the national spotlight, there's people. I'm gonna throw props to Jack Osborne, Ozzy's son.
Yeah.
I love his shows. Yeah. He seems to be legit.
Yeah, I don't think he doesn't seem like he's taking everything, he takes everything with a grain of salt.
Yep.
And so he's not just, throwing terms out there at just everything that comes his way. And I can respect that.
No, 100%. But there's people like that out there. There's a lot of them. The TAPS folks, they did a real good job and continue to do that.
Yeah.
One of the guys, he just got a book out. I'm thinking about buying it. It's not Jason. It's
Grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was one of the younger ones, not Grant.
Because it was Jason and Grant in charge.
And then there was
oh God, I can see his face.
Steve.
It was Steve, but I can't remember what his last name was. It Gonzalez?
I think Gonzalez.
Steve Gonzalez, yeah.
He's got a book out about all of his experiences that I want to actually read.
Interesting.
So I think those guys, they were doing legit stuff. They were always very skeptical. They were always very careful. With that said, I think the body of evidence that there is some type of outside of our perception activity occurring in this world is pretty confounding right now.
Yeah.
Now, so we have that. The next step is that what is that? What is creating that?
Yeah.
And I think tonight we kind of focus on that. I actually have a clip.
Okay.
And this is a pastor. His name is Bishop James Long. Mm-hmm. He has a doctorate in ministry. Mm-hmm. He is a Catholic bishop.
Okay.
So he has been on several of
those shows.
I
think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As the priest that comes in and does the blessings or the exorcisms and stuff like that.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He's been doing this for well over 20 years in his ministry.
Yeah.
So he has a ton of experience. But I'm going to play this video for everybody just to listen and and see what you think.
No matter what I say, it's just people are always so convinced that everything is demonic, and that's not the case. It's just not. Uh, Someone is asking, as a priest after Jesus was crucified, isn't it impossible for spirits to be human? No, it's just simply not. 35 years ago is where I investigated my first location, and since then I've investigated thousands of haunted locations. And I'm telling you, not every case was demonic, not at all. And keep in mind, even in Scripture, in Matthew chapter 14, verse 26, when Jesus was walking on water, the disciples were terrified, and it says they thought they were seeing a ghost. And then in Luke chapter 24, verse 36 through 51, when Jesus appeared to them after he was crucified, the disciples were terrified. They thought they were seeing a ghost. And Jesus says, why are you frightened? Ghosts don't have flesh and bones as you see that I have. So it tells us that the disciples had the concept of what ghosts were. And Jesus also did not deny that ghosts exist. He just simply said that they don't have flesh and bones as you see that I have. So I do believe that in spirits and demons.
So that's kind of
His stance on
his
everything.
stance on it. So, and that's the way I believe. My education comes from religion, and I've done a lot of study in that. And it's there is a preponderance of evidence in the Bible that in almost every incident, the spirits that were being highlighted were demonic in the Bible.
Yes.
Almost over every incident.
Yes.
And there, no question, no argument from me there.
Nope.
However, we have to understand how the Bible was written. See, a lot of people don't understand it. The Bible's not a linear story.
Right.
It does not start at Genesis and end at Revelation.
No.
The Revelation. That many of the books of the Bible were written not chronologically in order from one to another, but simultaneously, some before others and things like that. The book of Job is considered one of the oldest books in the Bible, and it was probably written before Genesis.
Interesting.
So you have to look at those things, pardon me, in the aspect of why was it written at a point. Now, when we go into it, I pulled up a bunch of stuff here.
Okay.
And the first thing I'm going to talk about is the demons in the Bible.
Okay.
There's no question whatsoever that there's a hierarchical power known as rulers, authorities, and power, and spiritual forces of evil. Paul talks about that in Ephesians 6:10 through 12, because we're fighting against them, right? That's the verse about what we fight against. And these demons have this ability they demonize people, and what they can do is possess people. They can push them in a direction of decisions to make
Influence.
yeah. And there's a lot of people that believe that 1/3 of the
Angels fell from heaven.
And the thing about it is that demons are the fallen angels. That's what most people generally believe. So that's kind of where that comes from. And they're able to kind of take shape of anything or any form to be visible to us and be able to possess us. And that's the reason why I would not, even though with my education, would not even attempt something as a cleansing or a blessing, because there's a thing in there. Basically, if you are not pure in spiritual care and are not properly prepared, you could be open to a sevenfold manifestation. So
That's not, well, we don't want that.
and 7 is, a really important number in the Bible.
Absolutely.
So, and that's in Matthew 12:45.
Right.
So, and again, they're confusers. They're liars. They don't tell the truth and all of that stuff. So,
And see, that's one of my biggest concerns is when we go on an investigation is what exactly are we dealing with? Is it something, because I'll be honest with you, that whole conversation that was had between me, Joey, and Lord Sydney
Yep.
during that investigation, there was a lot of red flags that were kind of going off in my head because number one, we were dealing with a situation where either A, we were talking to two spirits, B, we were talking to one that was kind of making light of another spirit, or is it possible that we were talking to one spirit who was playing the part of both spirits? And so those are the type of things. But see, going back to the Bible, this is my stance on it. This is my opinion about things. Do I believe that demons exist? 100%. Do I believe that they can inhabit us and cause utter and chaotic ruin in our lives? Absolutely. But I also believe that he who is in me is greater than he who is in the world. I also believe that if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, which I feel, and I'm not coming at anybody when I say this, but I feel like a lot of people lack. So when I get asked, how can you do this? How can you believe this? I'm like, do you realize the stretch of faith that when you read the Bible and you take it at face value, what you have to believe and what belief you have to distend, that is faith. And to believe those miracles and works in the Bible, I have to believe that I am under protection every time I go out. I have to believe that he is with me and that he's not going to allow anything to befall on me that's going to throw my world in upheaval.
No, I believe that 100%. And here's so some of my gird with a lot of it is that people have audible faith.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have physical faith.
I agree.
They don't have mental faith.
They'll say it out loud, but they don't really. It doesn't really.
It's not there.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Because faith without works is dead.
Correct.
I think that might be a verse or something like that. But the other side to that is, well, the other part to my thing is that for me to deny there are spirits out there beyond that are not demons.
Right.
Just like this pastor said.
I agree.
That Jesus acknowledged that there were spirits, that the disciples acknowledged there was concept there.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he didn't outwardly say there are ghosts that aren't demons, he didn't refute the disciples in
Right.
that. And he was, he would kind of verbally slap them around a little bit every now and then when they got off course, if you remember.
Yeah.
But for me to deny that, one thing causes me to have to deny everything.
I agree.
And that is the logical conclusion of that argument. It kind of goes back, and it's the same argument you can make that I watched this pastor on somewhere, I can't remember. And he said, we want to persecute, or as religious people want to persecute gays.
Mm-hmm.
Or we want to persecute this group or persecute that group. But here you're sitting here wearing your mixed linen and eating your shellfish and your cloven hoof animal. So who is the hypocrite? And if one sin's as great as all sin, then, that's the kind of same argument there in a way. But the fact is that when I say they, spirits are there.
Yeah.
Now, the Bible does have some pretty stringent wording about that there cannot be in places are ghost demons. There's a couple things. I have to just find it here on my notes. In Hebrews 9:27, for example, it notes that people are destined to die once, and after that, to face judgment. The problem with that is a lot of people use that scripture to say, well, then when they die once, they're either going to heaven or hell. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we're not absolutely sure, and many scholars agree that we go directly to heaven or hell once we die or one time. That we may rest for a while. And I brought up Paul in his teachings believed vehemently that Jesus was actually coming back in his lifetime.
Right.
But towards the end of Paul's life, when he was in prison, he was writing the church letters, Galatians, Ephesians, Colossians, and all of that stuff. He came to the conclusion that Jesus probably wasn't coming back in his lifetime and that he would be made to rest. Mm-hmm. And that either he would be made to rest, until Jesus came back, or he would be in kind of to put it in perspective, kind of like in a tent with Jesus. And then when Jesus came back, we'd come with him, we'd gain our earthly bodies back, would be healed, and then we would be with him forever on earth in the New Jerusalem. So there's a couple of debates there about that. So not every scholar agrees on the soul's absolute destination at the moment of death.
Right.
And some people have differing opinions on that. And I'm not here to tell anybody what to believe.
And that's the problem with it. And once you're gone, you'll find out. We'll find out. You know, I mean, and we won't know until it gets here.
Now, the other thing about this is that I found really, really interesting, and this goes back to the angelic and demonic debate. There are people that propose that our souls aren't even ours.
Well, then whose are they? I know whose they are, but my question is, if they're not ours, then whose are they?
They're Jesus's.
Well, see, that's what I would.
Because he bought and paid for them with his blood.
True.
So, with that, the believer should never be afraid of the demons.
Exactly.
Like you said. So that supports that.
So see, that's kind of where my mind goes, because, I believe, this is my take on it. If you really truly believe that your house is being plagued by ghosts, spirits, poltergeists, demonic activity, whatever you believe it is, I would say when everything else physically falls apart in your life, you get behind on car payments, you get behind on, payments in general, you lose your job, things of that nature, you do your best as a human being to keep it together.
Yep.
So why can't you do that spiritually?
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but, I mean, I'll put it to you like this. I'll say it this way. I know where my faith lies, and sometimes it's not always easy to walk that narrow path. If it were, everybody would get into heaven, right?
Yeah, 100%. So,
but I would say that it's one of those things you got to have faith. And I mean, I feel like I'm protected no matter where I go.
Yeah.
Now does that mean that, he's going to snatch me back from the brink of death? No. If it's my time, it's my time.
Correct. There's only so many heartbeats that are given.
Exactly. So with that being said, I feel like I should not fear when it comes to, I'll be honest with you, I hate a daggum thunderstorm, a really bad one. And the way our weather's been going recently around Bamberg, I don't trust what comes next.
Well, yeah, y'all had it hard up there.
But I will say this, I get like a dog, man. I want to crawl up under the bed and
wow.
Give me some cough syrup, some strong NyQuil, and let me be. But I'll say it like this: I have more fear during that, and just faith, hope, love.
Yeah.
Fear is not one of them. And so the way I look at it is, even I can benefit from strengthening my faith.
See, the thing is that every time, when you really think about it, every time God showed himself to his people or his presence to his people, they were scared.
Absolutely.
When Jesus walked on water, they were scared.
Yep.
When Jesus came back after his crucifixion, they were scared.
Yep.
Nothing says that you can't have fear. It's to say that your faith needs to be stronger than your fear.
True.
And that's hard sometimes. But
100%.
you know, one of the things a lot of people hold on to is going back. Let's go back Old Testament now. I don't want to jump back and forth Old and New Testament, but kind of requires it here. The laws, Leviticus. So remember, like Leviticus wasn't a dude. There wasn't no dude walking around named Leviticus, okay? This was named after the Levites, after the priest, right? Mm-hmm. So in Leviticus chapter 19, it starts on verse 31, it says, "We're urged not to turn to mediums or seek out spirits, which are seen as detestable to the Lord. In fact, we are told a man or a woman who is a medium or spirit must be put to death. You are to stone them, and their blood to be on their own heads." It is reiterated in Leviticus 20 and in Deuteronomy about the same thing. Now, here's something that I will argue. We're arguing from exclusion a lot of times here because we are only seeing a component of that ancient world that is written inside of scriptures, of the Bible. Mm-hmm. We're only seeing that component. There is an absolute, entire, complete component outside of biblical teaching and biblical writing at the time. Okay. It wasn't, this was for the people of Israel, mm-hmm. ancient Israel, the Jewish people. This was for them. This wasn't for all the other tribes surrounding them at the time. So there was absolutely other things going on in those tribes. Sumerians, Philistines, all of those people believed in different deities and different gods. And some people believe that there are other gods with a G out there, a little G out there, but our God, capital G, is overall. But the fact is that it doesn't exclude us from being or having the belief that a human can come back to a spirit. Here's what the Bible tells me. That when you look at the preponderance of evidence and you look at what could be out there in the extra biblical history, mm-hmm. that the Christian cannot return because his soul has been bought and paid for. Mm-hmm. The blasphemous, may not be able to return because they're going the other direction. However, the ones that are unheard non-believers, what guides them? Where are the rules for that group? It says it may, some people say it may go to hell. But remember, this was written for a group of people at the time that were a very fearful group of people, and using strong wordage and language could be a way of conveying or moving them in the direction of belief. This was fire and brimstone preaching at its best.
True.
So, by omission, that the human body couldn't return as a spirit, mm-hmm. We assume that the Bible says it can't happen. It really doesn't really address it except for people within that Judeo-Christian community. Mm. It doesn't address it for people outside of that. So why would it not, in a way, in my point of view? Now, I may be missing something there, but that is one of the hardest things for me to reconcile as well, is that we know God sent angels. Mm-hmm. God even sent beings mm-hmm. at the ascension mm-hmm. to greet Jesus.
Yep.
Some of them think it was Moses and Isaiah. So there's several names been thrown around in there. If we say it can't happen, then we've placed God in a box to say he can't do it.
Right. I agree. You put a
fence around it.
Yeah, exactly. Now to go back, and this is just from my take on things, I believe that we have the Old Testament. Yes, you have some lessons in there. It is part of telling the entire story. But also, when it comes to things like Leviticus and Numbers and things of that nature, you have a ton of laws in there. Laws that were written for man back in the day. And I agree with you to that extent, but I'll say this. When it comes to those laws, we were under a different covenant with God
Correct.
At that time. The reason being is that we're now under a completely different covenant with God is because man could not live up to all of the laws that God was asking, because not only, it kind of started with the 10 Commandments, but then it kind of, all these man-made laws kind of got started throwing on top of it, and it kept piling up and piling up and piling up. And then, if you go back and read some of those, it was people who were coming into the temple and they had to make sacrifices, and the goat or whatever animal that they were bringing in, it had to be any kind of blemishes, and it was just a whole ordeal. It was like us dealing with the IRS.
Yep.
Is basically what it was. It was a lot of red tape. But with that being said, under our new covenant, none of those laws now apply.
No, and the reason is, I am of the belief, and I'll speak for myself here, that the entirety of the Bible, so we think about the synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Right.
Right. Those kind of tell the story of Jesus. We think those are the synopsis of the Gospels. That's the synoptic Gospels. And then we have Acts, which is the story of the apostles and our introduction to Paul. We have the letters, and then we have prophecy in the Revelation. All right, that's New Testament. 26 books, all in all. I will argue that every book in the Bible is part of the gospel for Jesus. Because the laws weren't given to us to follow. The laws were given to us to show us that we are incapable of meeting the needs for ourselves of faith and to meet God.
Okay.
So it then required the intermediary, God's Son, Jesus, to come in on our behalf. So the Old Testament is in reality the cause for all of the effect of Jesus.
Yes. I 100% agree with that.
That's got to be, that's the only way to explain all these things, that we can't meet all these requirements under the law.
We just can't do it.
So we need an intermediary in there for us.
He's like our liaison between us and God.
And there's no fault in God there that we don't meet his standard, even though we're his creation. There's no fault there for us for that towards him, but it's the fault in us is from our original sin.
100%.
However, all of the laws, when you look from Leviticus, Deuteronomy, the laws, and the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, and part of the Torah.
Yeah, I was about to say, isn't that the Torah?
Yeah, it's pretty much the Torah.
Yeah.
When you look at all of that, it actually always focuses on the necessity for the Savior. And so it's telling us that this is why we need to believe in him. Now, was it intentionally done that way by man, or was it divinely inspired? I can't make that decision.
Right.
My faith says it was divinely inspired.
Right.
Until otherwise proven, because that's what I believe. However, we cannot go around burning people that we think are witches or mediums or stoning them.
Yeah, we tried that once, remember?
Yeah, it did not work out well for people because we fall under, back then the Mosaic covenant pretty much is what they were under with Leviticus and Deuteronomy. You had the Abrahamic covenant before that. Now we're under the new covenant,
Right.
under Christ. And that has liberated us in a way that it is not that we should not be aware that there are laws, but we are not bound to every requirement of the law because Jesus makes us blameless in the eyes of God.
Exactly, 100%. That's why you're covered with grace
Yep.
and mercy.
Yep. So, with that said, for us to think that God created such a plan, but yet can't allow human spirits to return is almost laughable, because God can do anything
100%.
in that aspect. Now, when I think the majority of things we encounter are remnants of energy of some sort. I think we have actually encountered some things that are some baddies.
Yeah, I have to. I'm not going to call them an outright demon, but I will say they are a malevolent. There's malevolent intent.
Yes, they had no good intent to them.
Right. I'm gonna say this real quick too, and this is why me and Joey don't mess with the Ouija boards. We don't do anything like that, because we're not trying to conjure anything up. And I think because number one, me and Joey would not even know where to begin or what to do if we were to use those. But I think it's lack of knowledge when you go about trying to do something without reading the instruction manual.
Correct.
That things go bad. It's kind of like your dad not stopping to ask for directions, on that summer road trip that your mom begged and pleaded with him. Hey, you need to stop and ask for directions. But I will say that I think that that's how a lot of demon manifestation happens.
Correct.
And I'm not basing this off of horror movies, but if you want to use the horror movies as your guide, that's usually what happens. But I think those things are usually in place or in those stories because at one time or another they actually happen to someone. So I just think when you go to meddling with things that you don't fully understand or you're not fully prepared to handle, then I think that's when things happen. They go awry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think so too. So intentional.
Yes,
meddling.
yes, intent.
Yeah, that whole. You won't get my hand on a Ouija board. You will not get me to do any type of ritual or thing like that.
I'll say this much. I did when I was younger, very younger. I did not know what I was dealing with. I did not buy one, but I did. I was in Kmart and, kid in the, 8, 10 years old. And here I am walking around the toy section, not knowing what I was doing. I noticed that one of the Ouija boards, the box was open, and
as is in every Kmart, there's something open on every aisle.
Yeah, and so I just happened to reach my hand in there, and I could see the little planchette in there, and kid being a kid, nothing more. I kind of put my hand on it, but I'll say this: I did ask a question. What I asked, I don't know, but I swear to you, I felt it move. Now, considering that nobody else's hand was on it. But that's coming from the mind of a 10-year-old kid. Yeah. So was it just my imagination or something else?
Yeah. I don't think you should go intentionally trying to bring stuff across and communicate. What we do is,
we ask and observe.
Ask and observe.
Yeah, there's no ritualistic method to what we do.
Observe, evaluate, and make a decision on it. But another thing that I would, as we kind of wind this up a little bit, because we've been talking a few minutes, we shouldn't really even be afraid or worried about it. And here's the thing. Here it goes back to your first statements that we should not be afraid of evil spirits and ghosts simply because 1 Peter 5:8 and Ephesians 6:11 through 12 advise that we should be aware of them and armor up against them.
Absolutely.
With the sources God provides, which is truth, prayer, faith, etc.
Exactly.
You can talk about the whole armor of God
There you go.
thing here. And we can trust that God will protect us from these spirits. If you don't trust that God can protect you from these spirits, what faith do you have?
Exactly.
1 John 4:4 says, you dear children, are you from God and have overcome them, because the one who is in you is greater than the one in this world. That's 100%. The verse you talked about. And then 2 Thessalonians 3:3, the Lord is faithful and he will strengthen you and protect you from the evil one.
Yep.
Here's how I kind of like to summarize this. More than likely, if you hear a bump in the night, it's probably just a bump in the night.
Bad plumbing.
Yeah, bad plumbing. It's a bump in the night.
It's all roto-rooter.
Mm-hmm. But be assured that if you're worried about the souls of departed ones haunting us, there's one thing we can most decidedly do is need not worry about it.
Right.
Because if you are a believer, God is going to 100% protect you in that.
Absolutely.
So don't go, we were looking at a location one time, and you had gone through and done some emails and got in contact with the board of people.
Oh, yeah.
And they denied our request simply because that they knew that the activity in that building was demonic. Now, a lot of people on that board were pastors and stuff like that.
Pastors, preachers.
But
things
who
of that
better
nature.
to judge that? In reality, when I got to thinking about it, yes, they could be fearful. But you often think of pastors at least having hopefully they have the faith knowledge of God, but they also have at least the working knowledge and the book knowledge of God as
Right.
well. They know all these things, and their denial was an attempt of protection for us. So
very well could have been.
and I am not disappointed when I look at it. I would love to go still.
Oh, definitely.
But I'm not disappointed that somebody's out there, and maybe that was God going,
Could be.
I'm protecting you by keeping you from it.
That's a good way of looking at that, Joey. Now, I will go back and, not saying you twisted the words too bad, but I will say this, is that their response was basically that they feel that all spiritual activity is demonic in nature. That's what their response was. But looking at a bigger picture, it could have been God interfering in that moment to say, hey, look, y'all don't need to go there.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah,
yes.
I do not believe by one instance of an iota that a human being was smart enough to make that decision.
Right.
That God placed that maybe misplaced belief in them, and it may be.
Could be.
But he was doing it for the protection of us, I believe. And when I look at stuff like that, when I look at doors that close like that, I have to, instead of being discouraged, and this is something I've learned, especially in the paranormal stuff, if a door closes on a investigation and something doesn't work out, there's a force higher than me making that decision at that point. It's not necessarily another human being on the other end of a telephone line or an email thread making that decision.
Yeah.
And whatever's happening there is being done for our benefit.
Yeah, for a reason.
So when I look at it like that, I don't get discouraged as much. And I feel comforted. That's the reason I rarely have any. I might be startled by something, but I don't have, when we go on investigation, I've never been scared. I've been startled. I've had bad feelings.
Nervous,
but I've never been fearful of my safety other than with Sydney, the dad instinct. Dad instinct kicked in, and I was ready to kick teeth in. You know what I mean?
And, it kind of,
And it kicked in kind of for both of us, to be honest, because, we both got, kids. And but that's what I think a lot of it is that if we're faithful and if we believe and if we prepare ourselves, then God will protect us.
Yes.
We're not in any way trying to test God
No.
in this.
No. Just trying to understand the unexplained.
Yeah, and that's it. And if you do have that belief that everything that is spiritual is demonic, I question then sometimes the absolute faithfulness you have, or maybe some understanding.
Yeah, it's one of the two.
Yeah, because even, like I said again, you can go back when Jesus showed back up to the disciples, he had to describe to them what a human was compared to a spirit.
Yeah, like, you don't remember?
Yeah, I've got flesh and bone that the spirits don't.
That's right. So I agree with that whole story 100% because, number one, it acknowledges that the disciples knew what a ghost was, and it even goes to show that Jesus knew and acknowledged that there are ghosts.
Yeah. Now, that is not downplaying the Legion story.
No.
And the infestation of demons in the man and being, and in the community being, the whole pig thing. That's not downplaying any of those. Those were demonic possessions.
I would say that if you are really in a situation, number one, don't ask for anything. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Don't. I would not recommend anybody to mess with a Ouija board. What you do on your own time is your business. But me and Joey are highly against it. I'll put it that way.
Yes.
We don't recommend it. But if you feel that you were, capable of wielding it, then by all means, that's your boat. But I will say this: for those that are actually in a situation that you feel that whatever you may be encountering is something far more or far worse than a simple ghost or spirit activity, you feel like it's threatening, stand up to it.
Yes.
Stand up to it and stand your ground. And what I mean by that is you have to muster everything inside of you and call upon the name of Jesus. And I know y'all probably think I'm out there with it, but after our first investigation, I've talked about it several times on here. Whatever it was, I don't care. It did, number one, it was not threatening, but it was enough for me to open my front and back door, open it up, and tell it to leave in the name of Jesus.
Yep.
And whether it was human in nature or otherwise, it left. And it wasn't until I invoked the name of Jesus that it did leave. But I will say this, I never once told it before that time, told it had to leave. But I will not be, my house and my life will not be run by something that is no longer here. And so I understand that it can be fearful. And I think when you think of, I'm scared of, insert blank here, that depending on what you fill that blank in with depends on like the basic, what's the words I'm looking for? It's like, I wouldn't give, don't give anything out there the ability to frighten you.
Yes.
But instead, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And what I mean by that is, as long as you give it that ability to scare you, it will continue to do so. Yes.
And that's also being, looking back at, that's also being sober in mind. That's also being, putting on those traits of the armor of God. Because you have to remember that all the demons, even the demons believe there's God, and they shudder at his name.
100%.
If you are not, and I would caution, I would only do one thing different. I would add a kind of tale of caution there, maybe. That if you're not strong in your faith, don't be surprised that they continue to push.
Yeah, get outside help.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree
and
with you
this
there.
is when I would go to the people that have experience in this. And this is usually, and I'm not a Catholic, there's a lot of their doctrine that I have trouble with, but they have people.
They do have people, but I will go back to the story of Legion. And this is one thing, it's a reoccurring theme in horror movies that you will see, especially when it's demonic possession. You will see that the priest or whoever will try to get the demon to tell its name. And because the reason behind that is because in the story of Legion, Jesus asked, "What is your name, demon?" And it said, "We are Legion, for we are many." But that's the thing. Giving, that's just like when you were a kid, and your mom used to call out your entire name. That gave her dominion over you. You got scared, because you know what was coming next.
So the other thing is, if you feel like there's something attached to you, or maybe even something making communication with you it is not generally.
Yeah.
Those types of things are bad.
Yeah.
Do not ask it for anything. Do not offer it anything, and do not bargain anything with them.
No, not at all. 100%.
Don't think that you're going to get out, because I'm a conspiracy theorist with this, and I believe there's a lot of Hollywood in that trouble right now.
You're probably right, because whatever's going on, it's coming back to bite them.
Yeah. A lot of these people are making deals with the man at the crossroads, is all I'm saying.
That's interesting.
I'm just saying that's how I feel. They're making deals with
There's
the man.
a lot of hammers coming down lately, ain't there?
Sure is. And remember, the man at the crossroads always got paid.
Yep, 100%.
But if you do feel like those things, do not offer them into yourself.
Yeah.
Don't offer them into your life. Keep them abated. Keep them away, and seek professional help. Go to your local Catholic clergy and tell them what's going on. And I'm not saying that any other churches can't do it. I just don't know of any churches that do it.
Yeah, because I don't know. I think I might be wrong on this, and I know we're trying to wrap this up. But yeah, definitely seek outside help. Definitely, I would try my best to read scripture. Pray. Because there's nothing on this plane that is going to give you alleviation.
No.
I'll put it that way. But yeah, I agree with Joey. Definitely seek the help of the Catholic Church.
Yep. So, thank y'all once again for listening tonight, and got kind of deep into a subject that we don't usually get into, but I thought Jeremy and I thought it was a good subject.
Yeah, something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and I think
he's kept nagging me about it.
Well, I mean, I put it like this way: we go to church to obtain knowledge, and we're always hearing about all the good stuff, but sometimes it benefits us out in the world to know this type of stuff.
Yep.
So
and it strengthens. I think it strengthens faith, because there's going to be battles.
Absolutely.
There's going to be battles.
Absolutely.
So, but we thank y'all for joining us tonight. Don't forget to follow us on our social media. Like and follow us on the Facebook, the Instagrams, and the YouTubes. Remember, on YouTube is Dead South Paranormal SC. Everything else is Dead South Paranormal. And if you want to email us, hit us up at deadsouthpodcast@gmail.com. Also, we've been getting a lot of stuff off of Facebook Messenger and stuff like that. I've been seeing the messages come through. I've been letting you handle those. I'm the one that's out of work right now with an injury. Not an injury. I get to go back this week. I'm so good. I'm so ready.
Well, good deal. Yeah, we'll be back after the end of, after summer's over with. We will be continuing. We'll be doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you guys won't really see. Maybe we'll, follow our social medias. Yeah. We'll put some stuff out there.
We might throw a live out or something like that one, something like that.
And just to kind of keep you, in the loop of what's happening. Like I said, we're going to try and find some new locations to investigate. We're going to try and do some new episodes, record all this kind of stuff, and that way when season number 2 starts, we'll be ready to go, rocking and rolling. That's right.
All right, love y'all folks. We will see y'all on the next one. Stay spooky.
Y'all take care.